My trainings very intentionally go beyond things like pronouns and terms, which are super important, don't get me wrong. But I'm very into unconscious bias and the way that we are socialized and what culture and our own macro and micro level influences are throughout our life. And I believe deeply that a lot of people make mistakes and might hurt someone completely unintentionally. They don't realize what they are doing and they don't know what they don't know, including myself. And my trainings are really more about that.
Change the Real with Monique Velasquez
and Piper Kessler.
For more than 20 years, we've worked in video production behind the scenes, helping mission-driven organizations and leaders.
This podcast exists for leaders who know their stories matter and are ready to stop guessing and start using video strategically to further their mission.
Not just fill a content calendar.
Each month, we drop 2 types of episodes.
One with Piper and I kicking it, sharing production insight from our own work,
and another featuring real stories about using media to create change
and connection. This is Change the Real.
Representation starts here.
Hey y'all.
Hey y'all.
I'm Monique Velasquez.
And I'm Piper Kessler. Today, I'm excited to get to know and introduce our guest, Dr. Brittany Bate. Dr. Brittany Bate is a licensed psychologist, an international speaker, and business strategist and coach.
Dr. Bate is a queer cisgender woman, ADHD'er, and founder of 2 mission-driven businesses. Two. Be Bold Psychology and Consulting and Bold Practice Builders. Be Bold Psychology and Consulting is a North Carolina-based LGBTQIA Celebratory, neuro-affirming, trauma-informed mental health practice offering therapy and evaluation services for individuals, couples, and families across their lifespan. Be Bold offers services to clients across 43 states, as well as in person in Durham, North Carolina.
Through Be Bold Practice Builders, Dr. Bate supports busy wellness entrepreneurs, especially LGBTQIA+ and neurodivergent folks, in building businesses that are values aligned and sustainable. Dr. Bate believes connection and community are the root of a successful business and is always open to being someone's teammate.
I love that. I had to say that we met at our local LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce event, I think it was about 2 years ago, and I was thrilled that Be Bold was present at the event because I love finding badass people doing amazing things for our community. So thanks for being on Change the Real today.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very excited to be here and have a chance to talk more.
Awesome. Okay, so the first question we always ask our guests is giving credit where credit is due. Even if you've never met this person, if you could hand out your flowers today, who would you honor for shaping your entrepreneurial journey?
Gosh, yeah, that is such a great question. And I think there are several people. I think partially one would have to be my dad. He has always been a bit of an entrepreneur, and even I've learned kind of through the lineage of my family, entrepreneurial spirit has been alive and well. So I think that is just a part of who I am. It's a part of my genes. So I think there's that piece. And then I think, just strong women that I've met along the way have really shaped who I am, and people who I haven't. I really, really love and admire people like Ruth Bader Ginsburg and other people who have been in spaces that have been historically male dominated and have paved their own ways. So I think that has always been very inspiring to me. I also had worked with a trial consultant over some time who is local to Raleigh. Her name is Charlie Morris, and she was very much a mentor and a just really cool, amazing, wonderful woman business owner and boss at times that I contracted with her too. And I really appreciated the work that she did. And she kind of taught me how to lead and how to treat people and how to foster relationships. So I think of her as well too, even though we are not as connected as often as I would like to at this stage in both of our lives.
It's always amazing that this question, the answer is kind of twofold. There's like the business like inspired, and then sort of the role model of being strong individual. And so I love hearing the stories that our guests give with that. So thank you for sharing that. Tell us a little bit about your work. What's the heart of what you do, and what keeps you motivated to show up every day to do those things?
Yeah, so I think to share a little bit about that, I have to talk a little bit about where I came from. So I was originally trained as a forensic psychologist, and I always thought that that was what I was going to do. My background and training in grad school and the majority of my placements, including my predoctoral internship, which brought me to North Carolina, it was at the federal prison in Butner. I think that's sort of where I started. And then after I finished my predoctoral internship in Butner, I ended up going into a private practice. And that was my first experience really with private practice in mental health. I was there for 2 years. And as I was going through my 2 years and going through my contract, my caseload really, really shifted to be primarily supporting queer and trans folks, including youth. And at that time, there weren't nearly as many out queer and trans clinicians. And it just felt really important to me to be able to have my business and create a space in a business that was truly queer owned, queer celebratory, and queer led. And from like the second you come on my website to the intake process and the language and the intake paperwork to the administrative people that you're communicating with, I really, really wanted that to be the case. And eventually, I was hoping to build a group practice that also embodied those same values with people who I knew were either members of the community or very strongly allied and could truly embody what it means to be LGBTQIA plus celebratory in the mental health space, not just affirming. I think affirming should just be everyone should be affirming, but
It's
I
the
think it takes it
default.
another step to truly be celebratory. And so that is the work I most love doing is supporting and helping members of the LGBTQIA plus community in anything that is mental health or mental health adjacent, but also entrepreneurial in my coaching business as well, supporting business owners and some of the unique challenges that might come through there. I also mentioned that I am an ADHD'er myself, so supporting neurodivergent folks is also really, really important to me, as well as supporting women.
And just moving towards like what keeps you motivated to show the up every day and do those things and be there for those communities.
I'm very, very grateful to say I really love what I do, and it's different every day. Working with a new person, a new human is always going to be different because no person or community is a monolith. So it keeps the like new seeking side of my brain very, very fulfilled. New challenges, new stories, new ways to help. So I think that's really a big part of it. And then you know, our community has a really long history of having a lot of challenges, and that certainly hasn't slowed down in 2026. And I think just being there to support our community, especially during fraught times, really, really motivates me to show up.
So, you're talking about seeing things and seeing the necessity. Can you share, like, is there a specific moment when you realized representation was missing and you were called to step up and be the one to model that
Yeah, you
change?
did. You touched
You
on it,
touched on it,
but maybe there's a
but like a specific
moment.
moment.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else who might be listening or if either of you have ever experienced this, but I think that sometimes when you're a member of a minority group, and if you're in a workspace or if you're in a group, sometimes there is this time where in some ways you become the token whatever person, and I think that there's been spaces where I become the token queer person, and so I have gotten a lot of questions or I've been tasked with offering a lot of education about the queer community, naming very, very strongly that I do not speak for the queer community under any circumstances, but here is some information I can provide. And I think just having those experiences over and over again really made me want to be able to have my own space where I wasn't necessarily going to be doing that to anybody of any community myself, but that we can also put education out there, and we can teach, and we can help people to learn and understand and access information without needing to rely on the people within our workforce to teach us and to learn. And with that too, I was always continuing to get the referrals for any person who was LGBTQIA plus, including a lot of trans and gender diverse clients. And while we are in a community together, I am a cisgender woman. I have no lived experience when it comes to gender diversity. And so I think that also was just a little bit of a moment where I was getting all of these clients that broadly fell within our beautiful community, but that really, like, I would really rather have a trans or gender diverse person being able to see and support these folks. And so that was part of my goal too, was to be able to further connect with and ideally hire folks that do have lived experience in terms of gender diversity too, so that clients can get supported within their specific community if that's what they so choose.
Yeah, and I see this as, one of those things where you see this again. We understand the idea of being the token. We've been in places where we needed to speak or represent a group. And I think being intentional in building your practice, how do you go about doing that? I mean, what is it you're doing to uh, attract those practitioners and to come and work with you? What's happening there? How are you doing that? How are you attracting
I think a
different?
big part of it is just being very clear about who we are as a practice on our website in general. And so I think that people who land on my website, whether it's clients or practitioners, and read it and see it, they know pretty clear the values that we have and what we stand for. And if someone feels like they want to be a part of this or that they could be a really good fit to be a part of this, then oftentimes they reach out, and then I will just sort of review their application. I'll meet with them and see if it makes sense or if they would be a good addition to the team. It's really important for me to have clinicians that have a variety of both backgrounds, both personal backgrounds and academic and training backgrounds, and identities and experiences. So I'm always looking to fill gaps and fill holes in those ways, so that we can offer the most clients the most robust of experiences as well, if at all possible.
Yeah, it makes sense. So this pivots into, why does inclusion matter at your business now as an owner? Now I'm gonna leave the idea of being the therapist and talk about what you're doing as a consultant. How does inclusion matter here, and how are you getting to the place that brings you joy in the work that you do?
There's a few different things I do as a consultant, but one of my most favorite things is doing trainings on helping to create more LGBTQIA plus celebratory spaces, whether we're talking with other mental health professionals and talking more clinically and how to best support clients, or whether we're talking C-suite staff of big businesses trying to provide not only like client experiences that are more affirming for all, but also and importantly for their own staff members too. My trainings very intentionally go beyond things like pronouns and terms, which are super important, don't get me wrong. But I'm very into unconscious bias and the way that we are socialized and how, what culture and our own macro and micro level influences are throughout our life. And I believe deeply that a lot of people make mistakes and might hurt someone completely unintentionally. They don't realize what they are doing and they don't know what they don't know, including myself. And my trainings are really more about that, these smaller, even unconscious things, and the way that language might be happening within a space, within a business, within a team that can lead to feelings of not feeling safe or can ultimately lead to turnover in staff because they don't feel seen or supported, and they don't, the folks that are doing those things don't know that they're doing those things, and that's not fair either, to for someone to be essentially held accountable but not know what they're doing. And this actually came up for me in a really meaningful way that sort of like set this off for me. So I was 6 years ago doing a group. It was a group I had developed at the practice I was working at, and it was a group for teens that were exploring their gender identity. At that time, there was not a group in the area that was like that, and I had about 7 or 8 adolescents on my own individual caseload that were just really, really looking for community. So I created a group space. About 5 of those individual clients did end up joining my group, and there was a handful of other folks that joined the group. And one of the clients that I had been seeing for a long time was a trans female teen, and she really did not have a whole lot of support in other areas of her life. And I was doing the group, and I was talking, and I was teaching, and then I addressed the group. I'm from Michigan originally, and I said, "What do you guys think?" And I said, "You guys," which is a very common Midwestern colloquialism that we say. And I was so grateful that my client had the rapport and the safety with me to say, "Hey, Dr. Bate, I just sort of noticed my reaction to you saying you guys, and I know you didn't mean it this way, but I want to tell you how it landed for me." And that was, I didn't know what I didn't know. I have been using "you guys" colloquially since I was 3, 4, 5 years old. And my little like northern heart really didn't want to say y'all, even though I've been in the South for quite some time, but I wanted to hold on to my northern roots. And I realized that that was unintentionally doing harm to people. And this was just the first person who had shared it with me. And so I share that example when I do these trainings, but that is what I mean by the smallest pieces of language matter for safety and for inclusivity. Just saying something like "you guys" when you're addressing a group of people might not feel great for everybody. And there's changes that we can make to make it feel better for others.
I, you're telling the story, and that is exactly what was going through my head. You guys, hey guys, I say that all the time, and I am aware 2% of the time that when I'm saying it, but I know I need to change, and so help me. What is it that is going on for me, that, or maybe something that I should be focused on when I'm just trying to throw out new structures for my language?
I really think it's just habit. Like, we are socialized into saying what we say. And so it's really just about breaking the habit, but then taking a step back and thinking, where else am I maybe doing this?
Mm,
Historically, positions have been held by and then are also named after male or men, firemen,
right.
congressmen. We've changed it now a little bit, but historically, that's what it has been. Postman, like it has been
Councilmen.
something man. And so, thinking about the language that we use in general each day and trying to make changes or swaps to more neutral language is really, really important. So, ombudsperson, congressperson, firefighter, those kinds of things. And then, yeah, paying attention to when we do say, "Hey guys," or when we say "ladies and gentlemen," when we're addressing a group, we can just say something like "everybody" or "hey group,"
Esteemed
or something
colleagues.
different. Yes, colleagues, a bunch of different things, listeners, whatever that might be. A big one for my spouse, she was born and raised in Texas, and she was ingrained with ma'ams and sirs for her entire life. And it still feels really uncomfortable for her to not say ma'am and sir. And at the same time, it's really uncomfortable for a person who might not identify with ma'am to be called ma'am. And it's really uncomfortable with someone who might not identify with sir to be called sir. And oftentimes, especially in customer service, we don't know the person's gender or their preferences beyond what we're assuming. And that's the whole part, is that we're assuming. And we don't even realize that we're assuming at times. And so that's what we have to work on, and what we have to practice doing is noticing when we're making assumptions. If we want to dig a little deeper, figure out where they've come from, and then work on trying to be more neutral if we can, until we know.
So, all of that is it, it swirls into my head about what we consume for entertainment, how we consume educational bits. A lot of it is through the media, either written or audio or video. And I do know that you do some webinar type stuff. So talk a little bit about, what your experience is doing these educations through this medium.
I have done them for webinars. I've also done them in person, but I try to make them very interactive. And we do talk about, what assumptions did you have when you saw me show up in this space? Just tell me, did you assume that I was a woman? And why did you assume that? And typically people will say, well, because your name, or because your hairstyle, or because you had eyelashes on, or whatever it might be. And it's whether I show up in person or I show up on video, and we talk about that. And that is how we are inundated, and we are inundated through the media. The media is a whole thing that we could talk for days about, how we have the stereotypical versions of what a woman is, or stereotypical versions of what a male is, or these beauty standards that have come up. And although they have evolved some over time, there still is what we know what they are. And that is based on what? Based on who? It's based on a lot of things, but it's also problematic in so many ways until we take a step back to think about it. Um, but yeah, I think that we can engage people a lot of different ways, and I can luckily get to a lot of people if I'm engaging them through webinars as opposed to in person. But I also just want everyone to notice what we think of people when they first show up on our screens, whether that's me or someone else, because everyone has an assumption. We gender people immediately, and we think things immediately, even if it might not be at our conscious awareness.
We talk about bias too, because becoming aware of our own bias is so big. And I am glad that you are talking about this, because there are a lot of people that just kind of move through life without really that self reflection, without that thinking about themselves, right? And so I think the conversations like this, where we talk about our biases, that they get built in different ways, culturally, media on screen, and then, how we react or how it gets criticized, right? And so I appreciate that you've brought that up. And, if you could talk a little bit about, bias and why showing up on screen, being your authentic self, no matter how you present, clean, not clean, low income, high income, whatever it is that you've got going on, talk about, showing up authentically in photos, in media.
I do love that you asked that question, because I think there is also some nuance for this is like a big conversation for mental health professionals. So there is this idea that mental health professionals, at least in the previous kind of years, that you should be wearing a blazer and dressing very, very nicely. Nicely, what does that even mean, right? Like when I say it, I imagine a lot of listeners have an idea of what that means, but what does it actually mean? And these like dress codes, but especially for mental health professionals, we're these medical professionals or medical adjacent professionals, depending on what people think and believe. And there's this idea that we should be showing up in our jackets, and if we have glasses, we've got our glasses on, and we are very academic looking, quote unquote. Um, and I don't believe that necessarily. I have found that our practice has been successful, and that we're most successful when we show up authentically. When we show up like you're going to see me in session, and you're not going to see me in session wearing a jacket. You're just not. If I were to go testify in court, yes, I would be wearing courtroom appropriate attire. We know what that means based on where we live and our culture, and we know what courtroom appropriate attire is. But I'm not going to be showing up like that in session. I'm going to be showing up with a sweater or with a t-shirt or with jeans, because that's who I authentically am. When I was hiring, when I was first moving from a solo practice to a group practice, I thought long and hard and took a lot of feedback from other people who were awesome and sharing about dress codes and putting a dress code in my employee handbook. And I opted ultimately not to, because I think that dress codes are historically rooted in white supremacy culture. I think they are historically heteronormative. I think they are historically problematic. And so I pretty much just said, you are an adult. Please like show up as an adult who is in a profession. And same thing with our headshots. Show up as you would show up in session. You don't need to get dressed up for your headshot. And when I show up to do these kinds of things, same thing, I'm showing up exactly who I am because authenticity matters and people resonate with authenticity. I don't want to show up as someone I'm not and then attract a client that is going to be attracted to whatever that not version of me is. It's not going to be good work as a consultant or as a clinician.
We talk a lot about how when you show up authentically, you're the magnet for what you want to work with or work collaborative with. And then the other half of that is you're repelling who you don't want to work with.
Or who you might not necessarily be able to help. I mean, it's like, this is who I'm going to be comfortable with you. I see who you are. I know I can work with you. And it's an automatic comfort. So yeah, we do talk about authenticity. Thank you for saying that because it is very important when you're going to be talking about intimate things and reveal yourself. I think it breaks down walls immediately with using media.
Those shortcut things that you can do to get rapport.
Right.
Right.
And so how do you think video or media and storytelling helps you amplify your voice or connect with your audience in that way that feels authentic to you? I mean, that you are presenting yourself as you are. How it's very deliberate on your part. I mean, I guess I'm not sure what I'm asking because you did say that you're authentic.
It's just how does it connect with who you're trying to work with?
Well, what I can say is on one of our directories, Psychology Today, there's an opportunity to upload a very short video just introducing yourself. And there's actually a lot of data that suggests that those profiles that do have the video tend to get more client follow through and clicks. And I think it makes sense, right? Like they want to hear the person that they're going to be talking to talk. They want to get a authentic vibe from them before they decide if they even want to do the really scary and vulnerable thing, like reaching out and saying, hey, can you help me? Here's a little bit about what I've got going on. So if we're going to be reaching out and being vulnerable, I think being able to have as best of an idea of who it is that's going to be receiving that is really, really helpful. And I've had several people who've reached out to me from Psychology Today because of my video. And I don't think it's a great video. Let me be very, very clear. I recorded it like 3 years ago. I would do it differently. I probably need to update it, but they've still said things like, I could just tell from your body language that you're someone I'd feel comfortable talking to. Or I noticed you have a little bit of an accent and you aren't from around here, and it resonated with me because neither am I. Or, hey, you talk kind of fast. Me too. I think we'd work well together. And it was about these things that they would not have been able to glean from reading my bio on my webpage. It came because they looked at and saw this video and they felt a connection. For one reason or another, they felt a connection from seeing me and hearing me speak and the words that I chose to say in 10 to 15 seconds.
And that sums up a lot of what we just talked about in one of our episodes.
Yeah.
Specifically, how that coming onto screen authentically really does give who you want to work with new clues to what makes them comfortable with you, because you can't necessarily get that from text on a screen or a piece of paper or brochure.
Or even a photograph
or
necessarily.
A photograph.
Yeah.
Right. They're not going to know you talk fast or that you have an accent or don't have an accent, right? So I love that. We love having a chance to introduce our audience to amazing change makers that show up and do authentically inspired work and are actively trying to change the real for people that look like us, right? If folks want to know more about working with you, other than Psychology Today, how can they get more information?
Yeah, so you can learn more about my mental health practice and the amazing clinicians that work at my practice at Be Bold Psych NC, like North Carolina.com. Or if you just type into your search engine, Be Bold Psychology, it probably will take you to where you need to go. And from there, you can learn more about each of our clinicians, including myself. If you're interested at all in any of the trainings or consulting or business consulting or speaking that I do, you can learn more about me at boldpracticebuilders.com. And that will share a little bit about what I do. I do, being vulnerable, I need to update my website some, but you can get what you need from there. It
This is a
exists
no
and you can get what
judgment zone.
Thank you. I love a good no judgment zone. So, you can get what you need from there. And, I can also help to, if you reach out there, we can book our own little mini consult to be able to get to know each other better.
And just because it struck my mind while you were talking, I was like, oh, I want to know if you're going to do some amazing things this year that people might want to show up and be a part of. So, do you have something on the horizon in 2026 that would like to get some, attention?
Yeah, so I really am kind of honing in on this sort of keynote and primary training that I'm doing, this Not Your Mom's LGBTQIA plus training, where we really go far beyond pronouns and terms, although again, it's very important, and really look into our own unconscious biases in this like incredibly and truly non-judgmental space. And I really want to bring that to as many companies and places as I possibly can, whether it's mental health and wellness or whether it is, the bigger companies or whether it's a small local company here in North Carolina. That is something that I'm really looking to do in 2026 and really, really excited about. I already have a few of those trainings booked through other spaces. So I do have like 6, I think, speaking things already booked in 2026, which I'm thrilled about. And then if there are any mental health or wellness entrepreneurs interested, I will be speaking on a panel in Portland, Maine in September. And it is a summit. It's the 3rd one that has been put on by my friends Jen Agee and Patrick Casal. They are both entrepreneurs in the wellness space and wonderful humans. I've attended their previous 2, and then this will be the 3rd one, and I highly recommend it. I've also never been to Portland, Maine, so come with me and let's eat some lobster corn dogs, I say.
Lobster corn dogs. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, that's like Piper thing, not a big thing.
I give it a go.
Thank you, Brittany. This was really good stuff.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see what you bring in the world and how you help change the real. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you so much for having me. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching this episode of Change the Real.
If you liked it, hit subscribe, share the episode, or drop a comment. We actually read them.
Connect with us or any of our guests on LinkedIn. Check the show notes for links.
And if you're done with DIY and ready to record something that matters in a safe, inclusive space, check out our studio at VelasquezMedia.com.
Remember,
Representation starts here.